don't want to see your ugly face anymore. Pack your things and get out before I come home. Those were the words my husband of 10 years spat at me over the phone, his voice as cold as steel, his tone devoid of hesitation. I had spent a decade of my life devoted to this man, standing by his side through every success and setback, believing we were a team. But in that moment, it became painfully clear I was nothing more than an inconvenience to him. I stood there, phone still clutched in my trembling hand, the weight of his words pressing down on my chest like a boulder. My vision blurred, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. How had it come to this? How had I become so disposable? But the truth was, I already knew the answer. The late nights at the office, the business trips that lasted longer than they should have, the distant, disinterested looks whenever I spoke. I had noticed the shift long before this moment, but I had told myself it was just stress, just a rough patch, just another storm we had to weather. I had tried to convince myself that the man I married, the one who had once made me feel like the most important person in the world, was still in there somewhere, that the love we built, the life we created, wasn't crumbling beneath me. But deep down, I had known. The final confirmation came a week ago. Xander had left for another business trip, one that felt more suspicious than the others. Something about the way he hurried out of the house, the way he barely acknowledged my goodbye, made my stomach turn. So, after hours of staring at the ceiling that night, unable to shake the gnawing suspicion clawing at my gut, I decided to dig, and that was how I found it, his secret Facebook account. It was on his old laptop, the one he had discarded years ago when he upgraded to a newer model. He probably never thought I'd turn it on again, never thought I'd go looking, but I did. The moment I opened the browser and saw the logged-in account, my heart slammed against my ribs. I clicked on the Messages tab, my fingers numb and clumsy, knowing that whatever I found would change my life forever. And it did. There she was, a woman I had never seen before, stunning in a way that made my stomach twist, young, effortlessly beautiful, with a smile that seemed to mock me from the screen. Their conversation stretched back months, filled with intimate confessions, laughter, inside jokes, things that used to be ours. There were pictures, too, pictures of them together in places he had claimed were strictly business. A hotel room, a fancy restaurant, a vacation spot I had begged him to take me to for years. Every word, every image was a knife in my chest. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air, unable to escape the suffocating weight of his betrayal. And then the final blow. One message stood out from the rest, sent just a day ago. I can't wait to finally be rid of her, then it'll just be us. I covered my mouth with my hand, bile rising in my throat. He wasn't just cheating, he was planning his exit. He had been waiting for me to find out, for me to make it easy for him. I closed the laptop with shaking hands, my mind blank, my body frozen in place. Minutes passed, maybe hours, I don't know. All I know is that at some point, the sadness burned away, replaced by something stronger. Fury. I didn't wait, I called him. He picked up after 3 rings, his voice casual, as if he wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. Hey, babe. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Are you cheating on me? Silence. Then a slow, almost amused chuckle. What kind of question is that? I have proof, Xander. Stop lying, he sighed, the kind of exasperated sigh you'd give a child throwing a tantrum. It's Abigail, I snapped, my voice sharp as glass. And don't you dare act like I'm being irrational. I saw your messages. I saw her. Another pause then, in a tone so condescending it made my blood boil, he said, well, I guess it's good that you finally know. My grip on the phone faltered. What? I mean, I was getting tired of hiding it. This just makes things easier. My body locked up. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the sheer arrogance. The absolute lack of remorse. How could you do this to me? My voice wavered, but I forced myself to hold steady. After everything? Oh, come on, Abigail, he scoffed. Don't act so surprised. You've been so wrapped up in your little cases, pretending to be this big-shot lawyer, that you completely forgot how to be a wife. The words were so cruel, so calculated, that they nearly knocked the air from my lungs. I supported you, I whispered, shaking. I stood by you every step of the way. Yeah, well, support doesn't make up for being boring, he said casually. Face it, you're not fun anymore. You're not exciting, and you sure as hell don't look like the kind of woman I want on my arm. A sharp pain bloomed in my chest. I should have been shattered. I should have collapsed under the weight of it all. But instead, something inside me snapped. You're a disgusting excuse for a man, I said, my voice steadier than before. Xander let out an unimpressed chuckle. And yet, here we are. I already have a lawyer lined up, so I'd suggest you start packing. I don't want to see your ugly face anymore. Pack your things and get out before I come home. Click. The call ended. I stared at the screen, the finality of his words sinking in. But instead of breaking down, instead of letting him win, I lifted my chin, wiped the tears from my face, and made a decision. He thought he could discard me like an old toy, thought I'd slink away in humiliation while he moved on with his perfect little mistress. He had no idea who he was dealing with. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I stood there, staring at my phone, Xander's last words echoing in my ears. I don't want to see your ugly face anymore. Pack your things and get out before I come home. He really thought he had won. He thought I would slink away in humiliation, crushed under the weight of his betrayal, that I would obediently disappear while he paraded around with his younger, shinier replacement. I almost laughed. Xander had spent years underestimating me. Maybe because I let him, maybe because I convinced myself that being the quiet, supportive wife was my role to play. But now, as I stood in the wreckage of my marriage, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't going to be the woman he discarded like an old coat. I was going to be the storm that tore his perfect little life apart. I took a deep breath and forced myself to focus. I wasn't just a woman scorned. I was a damn good lawyer. And unlike Xander, I actually knew how to read a contract. My hands moved on autopilot as I dug through my home office, yanking open drawers and rifling through files until I found what I was looking for, our prenuptial agreement. I hadn't thought about it in years. We signed it at Xander's insistence. He wanted to protect his assets because, as he had so kindly put it back then, marriage is a business arrangement as much as it is a romantic one. Well, buddy, you were right about one thing. I flipped through the pages, scanning the text with the precision of someone who had built their career dissecting legal jargon. And then there it was, a single clause buried halfway through the document, one I had almost forgotten about. In the event of infidelity, the betrayed spouse shall be entitled to 50% of all shared marital assets, including but not limited to jointly owned properties, business holdings, and financial accounts. I let out a slow breath, my fingers tightening around the pages. Xander, in his arrogance, had put this in to protect himself. Back then, he was the one making all the money. I was still climbing the ranks in my firm, and he was so confident that he would never be the one to cheat, he never imagined it would backfire. I sat down at my desk, my heart pounding in my chest. I could almost see him smirking in his expensive suit, thinking he had everything under control. He had no idea what was coming. I wasted no time. I called the best divorce lawyer in town, the kind of lawyer who made grown men cry in courtrooms. He was an old colleague from law school, someone I had worked with on high-stakes cases before. The moment I told him what was happening, he laughed. Abigail, he said, amusement thick in his voice, are you telling me Xander set himself up for the worst divorce settlement I've ever seen? Oh, he set himself up all right, I replied coolly. I'll take the case, he said instantly. And don't worry, I'll make sure your soon-to-be ex-husband regrets every single choice he's ever made. That was exactly what I needed to hear. 2 days later, I walked into a cafe to meet Jake, Xander's lawyer. I had never met him before, but the moment I saw him, dressed in an overpriced suit, holding his coffee with that arrogant air lawyers like him always carried, I knew exactly what kind of man he was. Shark, good, because I was a predator, and today I was going to remind him exactly who he was dealing with. He stood when I approached. You must be Abigail. I slid into the seat across from him, cutting off whatever scripted introduction he had planned. Let's get straight to the point, shall we? Jake arched an eyebrow. I assume you're here to negotiate a clean break. That would be the easiest option for both parties. I smiled. Oh, Jake. Xander really didn't tell you anything, did he? He frowned slightly. Tell me what? I reached into my bag and placed the prenuptial agreement on the table. Why don't you take a look at Section 5, I suggested, leaning back as I watched him scan the document. I knew the moment he found it, his eyes widened, his posture stiffening. He stopped, looking at me sharply. Xander didn't mention this clause. Of course he didn't, I shrugged, because he thought I was too weak to use it against him. Jake exhaled through his nose, visibly thrown off his game. He quickly composed himself, but I could see the gears turning in his head. This could get complicated, he admitted. Oh, it's very simple, I said smoothly. Xander cheated. I have proof, which means I'm entitled to 50% of his business. His entire business, Jake, not just our shared home, not just the investments, everything. Jake said nothing for a long moment. Then he did something that almost made me laugh. He reached for his coffee and took a slow sip, like he needed caffeine to process the disaster his client had just walked into. Finally, he sighed. I'm going to need to have a conversation with my client. You do that, I said, standing. Let him know that I expect his full cooperation. Otherwise, this is going to be the ugliest divorce settlement in history. Jake didn't argue, he just nodded, already mentally preparing for the absolute hell he was about to walk into with Xander. I left the cafe with a newfound sense of satisfaction. I had landed my first punch, and Xander was about to bleed. It took less than 24 hours for Xander to call me. I saw his name flashing on my phone screen, and for a brief moment, I debated letting it go to voicemail. But no, I wanted to hear him panic, so I picked up. What the hell did you say to my lawyer? His voice was dripping with fury. I smiled. Oh, hello, Xander. Nice to hear from you. I thought we were only communicating through lawyers now. Cut the crap, Abigail, he snapped. Jake just quit. He told me I was a liability. What the hell did you do? I let out a soft chuckle. I did what you always told me to do, Xander. What the hell are you talking about? I leaned back against my chair, enjoying this moment far too much. I read the contract. Silence. For the first time in weeks, Xander had no smart remark, no condescending jab, just dead silence. Then finally, his voice dropped to a furious whisper. You think you can take my business from me? I smiled, knowing I had him exactly where I wanted him. Oh, Xander, I said sweetly. I don't think I can. I know I can. And just like that, the tables had turned. Xander hung up. Not in that self-assured, arrogant way he used to when he thought he had the upper hand. No, this time he hung up because he had nothing left to say. For the first time, Xander was afraid. I could practically hear his world crumbling around him, the panic setting in, the realization that the wife he had so easily dismissed wasn't just walking away. She was about to take him down. And God, it felt good. Over the next few days, I barely had to do anything. Xander did all the work for me. He scrambled, desperately. I had a few contacts in the legal world, so it didn't take long for the whispers to reach me. He was burning through lawyer after lawyer, sitting down for consultations, only to be shown the door the second he mentioned the prenup clause. Apparently, his reputation had taken a hit, news traveled fast in high-profile business circles, and suddenly, Xander wasn't the untouchable entrepreneur everyone thought he was. No lawyer wanted to attach their name to a guaranteed loss. He had walked into a battlefield completely unarmed, and every single legal expert he approached saw it. They saw how airtight my case was. They saw the proof, the paper trail, the blatant stupidity of a man who had signed his own downfall with a smirk on his face. No one wanted to represent a sinking ship. And Xander? He was sinking fast. It didn't take long before he showed up. I should have expected it, but when I heard the knock at my front door, I still felt a flicker of surprise. I knew it was him. No one else would dare bother me unannounced right now, not after the storm that had been unleashed. I took my time answering, let him sweat. When I finally pulled the door open, I was greeted with the sight of a man who looked nothing like the Xander I once knew. His suit, usually pristine and custom-tailored, was slightly wrinkled, as if he had been wearing it for too long. His hair was disheveled in a way that suggested he had run his fingers through it one too many times. His confidence, that effortless superiority he had always carried, was gone. For the first time in years, he looked like a man who didn't know what to do next. He tried to mask it, of course. He was still Xander, still the man who had built an empire on smooth words and calculated charm, but I could see it in his eyes. He was terrified. Abigail, he started, his voice carefully measured. Can we talk? I raised an eyebrow, crossing my arms over my chest. I thought we were only speaking through lawyers. His jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. Yeah, about that. He let out a short, humorless laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. I haven't exactly been able to secure representation. I tilted my head. Oh, you mean no one wants to take your case? That's shocking. His smile faltered. Abigail, no, I cut him off, leaning against the doorframe. I want to savor this moment, because it's rare to see you in a position where you're not in control. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, but he swallowed it down. He needed something from me, and we both knew it. I let him stew in the silence for a moment before sighing dramatically. All right, Xander, what do you want? I think we can handle this without dragging it through the courts, he said, his voice smoother now, like he thought he could sell me on something. I had to bite back a laugh. Oh, you mean the divorce? The one where I get 50% of everything you own? His jaw clenched. Abigail, come on, that clause, it was just something I put in there back then because I never thought we'd need it. I never thought it would actually apply. I let out a mock gasp. Wow, that's crazy. It's almost like you shouldn't have cheated on your wife. His eyes darkened, but he kept his voice calm. We were falling apart long before that, you know it. Oh, so now it's my fault? I cocked my head, because last time I checked, I wasn't the one sneaking off to fancy hotels with some 20-something who probably doesn't even know how to spell fiduciary. He exhaled through his nose, frustrated. I made a mistake, all right. I stared at him, expression unreadable. Then I nodded. You did. Relief flickered across his face. Exactly. So maybe. And now, I interrupted, you're going to pay for it. His expression hardened again. Abigail, be reasonable. Oh, now I should be reasonable? I let out a short laugh. You sure weren't reasonable when you were lying to me, when you were spending our money on someone else, when you were planning to kick me out of our house like I was some unwanted guest. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. I built that company, he snapped. You wouldn't even have half of what you do without me. That was it. That was the real Xander, not the smooth talker, not the fake remorse. This was the man who thought he was untouchable. I took a step closer, looking him dead in the eye. And now you're gonna watch me take half of it, because you signed that prenup with your own hand. I could see the fire in his eyes, the barely contained fury at the injustice of finally facing consequences, but he knew he couldn't win. So instead he tried one last pathetic move. I called things off with her, he blurted out. The mistress, it's over. I blinked. And? He stepped closer, his voice softer. Maybe this is a wake-up call for both of us. Maybe we can work this out. I stared at him, stunned. Did he actually think? Did he really believe? Oh my God. I burst out laughing. It was uncontrollable, a sharp, almost hysterical laugh that spilled out of me before I could stop it. Xander's face twisted in frustration. This isn't funny, Abigail. Oh, no, it's hilarious, I gasped, wiping at the corners of my eyes. You spent months plotting your exit, parading around with your mistress, humiliating me, only to come crawling back the second you realized I could actually ruin you? His face flushed. I'm not taking you back, Xander. My voice turned cold. Not now, not ever. And for the record, your mistress is probably already moving on to her next sugar daddy now that she knows you won't be rich much longer. His eyes flashed with something dangerously close to panic. I smiled sweetly. Karma's a bitch, isn't it? For the first time in our entire marriage, Xander was the one with no power. And I was just getting started. Xander was unraveling. I could see it in the way his jaw clenched, the way his fingers twitched like he wanted to grab something, control something, but couldn't. For once, he was powerless, and it was glorious. He had spent years believing he was untouchable, that money, status, and charm could smooth over any mistake, that he could do whatever he wanted and walk away unscathed. But now he was staring down the barrel of a ruined reputation, a shattered empire, and a bank account that was about to be split clean in half. And I was going to make damn sure he felt every second of it. It started with his mistress. I hadn't even been keeping tabs on her, she was irrelevant to me. But word traveled fast, especially in circles as fake and opportunistic as the one Xander had surrounded himself with. She left him. No warning, no goodbye. One day she was there, playing the perfect young trophy girlfriend, and the next, gone, disappeared from his life like she had never been there at all. Not that I was surprised. She wasn't in it for love. She was in it for the lifestyle, the lavish trips, the luxury shopping sprees, the I'm dating a powerful man's social clout. And when she found out that Xander was about to lose half of everything he owned, she bailed. I could picture the moment she realized he wasn't going to be as rich, as powerful, as valuable as he once was. Could almost hear the way her voice must have turned sickly sweet when she told him it's not you, it's me, before blocking his number and moving on to her next target. Karma had never tasted so sweet. Then came the real blow. His business. Xander had built his company on an image, the flawless, highly successful businessman, the man who never lost. Investors didn't just back his ideas, they backed him. But now that image was cracking. And in the business world, the second people smell weakness, they pounced. News of our divorce wasn't just whispered in quiet circles anymore, it was everywhere. Business associates knew what was happening, the sharks in his industry started circling, waiting for the fallout. And the moment people found out that I was legally entitled to half of his empire, They panicked. No one wanted to invest in a company whose CEO was about to lose half of his assets in one brutal divorce settlement. No one wanted to partner with a man who had let his personal life spiral into public disaster. Meetings were canceled, deals that had been guaranteed started to fall apart, and Xander, he was drowning. I didn't hear from him for days after he showed up at my door, but I knew what was happening. He was scrambling, desperate to keep things from falling apart. Then, the final nail in the coffin, he had to sell the house. The house. The one he had kicked me out of. The one he had stood in with that smug little smirk telling me to pack my things and leave like I was nothing. He had loved that house. Loved flaunting it, using it as proof that he was better, richer, more successful than everyone else. And now, it was gone, sold off below market value because he needed liquidity fast. I could only imagine how it felt for him, watching the place where he had once felt untouchable slip through his fingers like sand. I should have felt pity, but I didn't. Not after the way he had humiliated me, not after the years of belittling, cheating, and manipulating. This wasn't revenge, it was justice. I should have expected it. The moment when Xander, stripped of his pride, his money, and his control, would come crawling back one last time. But even then, when I saw his name flash across my screen, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I debated ignoring the call, let him rot, but curiosity got the best of me, so I answered, "What do you want, Xander?" His voice was different this time, raw, desperate. "Abigail, please." I nearly choked. "Please?" I waited, saying nothing, letting him squirm in the silence. "I made a mistake," he continued, his voice hoarse, like he hadn't slept in days. "I shouldn't have done what I did. I lost everything." I smirked. "You don't say," he exhaled shakily. "I know you're mad." I barked out a laugh. "Mad? Xander, I'm thriving. This divorce, best thing that's ever happened to me." Silence, and then in a broken whisper, "I don't know what to do." Ah, there it was, the moment when the great Xander finally cracked. I could have been cruel, could have dragged it out, enjoyed his suffering just a little longer, but I was done wasting energy on him. I leaned back, twirling a pen between my fingers. "Well, Xander," I said, my voice dripping with amusement, "I'd say you should have thought about that before you threw your marriage away." More silence, a long, long silence, then barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry," I sighed, almost bored now. "You're not sorry, Xander. You're just losing." Another pause, and then finally the moment I had been waiting for, the click of him hanging up, the last time I would ever hear his voice. I stared at the phone for a moment, letting it all sink in. Then I smiled, because for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, finally free. The last time Xander hung up on me, I felt nothing but satisfaction. No sadness, no regret, not even a trace of nostalgia for the years I had spent by his side. I was done, and more importantly, I had won. For months, Xander had tried to manipulate, intimidate, and outmaneuver me, believing I would be too broken, too humiliated to fight back. He had underestimated me every step of the way, and now he was the one picking up the pieces of his shattered life while I was standing tall, stronger than ever. The divorce proceedings were swift, with my legal team handling everything, and Xander having no real options left. He barely put up a fight. He signed the papers without another word. Maybe he thought dragging it out would only embarrass him more. Maybe he finally realized that no amount of pleading, gaslighting, or last-minute apologies would change the outcome. Or maybe he just gave up. Not my problem. The day my lawyer slid the finalized divorce decree across the table, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "That's it," he said, smiling. "You're officially free." Free. I ran my fingers over the embossed seal, taking it in. For the first time in years, I wasn't Xander's wife. I was just me. The first thing I did, I moved into a new home. Not just any home, a place that was mine, completely untouched by Xander's presence. No memories of whispered lies, no echoes of his condescending voice telling me I wasn't enough. Just peace. The house was everything I wanted. Modern but warm, with high ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows that let in every bit of morning light. I bought it with the money from my half of Xander's business, money he had tried so hard to keep from me. Every time I walked through the grand entryway, I thought about how much it must kill him to know that this was how it ended, that I had taken his power, his security, and turned it into my own success. It was poetic, really. Professionally, I was thriving. Without Xander constantly belittling me, I poured my energy into my career. Clients flooded in, my reputation as a cutthroat attorney only grew, fueled by the very public spectacle of my divorce. It turned out people loved a comeback story. I was invited to speak at legal panels, offered high-profile cases, and before I knew it, I was leading my own division at the firm. I had worked my ass off for this, and now I was exactly where I was meant to be. And Xander, he was barely keeping it together. His company struggled under the weight of his own arrogance. Losing half of everything meant more than just financial damage. It meant a loss of credibility. Investors didn't trust him. Clients hesitated. Competitors smelled blood in the water and pounced. The once mighty businessman who had thought he was invincible, now he was just another failed CEO trying to stay afloat. He tried to reach out again, one pathetic email months after the divorce was finalized. It was short, pathetic, really. I hope you're doing well. Maybe we can talk? I never responded. Because I didn't need to, there was nothing left to say. Healing wasn't instant. There were nights where I still felt the echoes of his words, where doubt crept in like a shadow, whispering things I didn't want to hear. Was I really better off? Had I wasted too many years on a man who never truly loved me? Did I deserve happiness after so much heartbreak? But the thing about healing, it comes in waves. Some days I woke up feeling weightless, untethered from the past. Other days, the memories resurfaced uninvited and unwelcome. But every time doubt tried to take root, I reminded myself of the truth. I had survived him. I had taken everything he thought he could take from me, and I had built something even better. I wasn't just moving on, I was thriving. One night, months later, I sat on my balcony, sipping a glass of wine, staring at the city skyline that stretched out before me. It was quiet, peaceful, everything my life never was when I was with Xander. I smiled to myself, letting the moment sink in. I had rebuilt myself from the ashes of what he tried to destroy. I had thrived when he expected me to crumble, and most importantly, I had taken back my life on my terms. I had finally learned what it meant to put myself first, to stop shrinking for a man who never deserved me, to reclaim my joy. Now I have to ask, what would you have done in my place? Would you have fought back, taken your revenge? Or would